So welcome everybody to our webinar, like Sarah said, our little lunch and learn webinar called Creating Complex Boolean Searches on ClearedJobs.Net. My name is Bob Wheeler, and this is Sarah McMurrow. I've been with ClearedJobs.Net for over 9 years, close to 10. Member, not only am I an account rep, also part of our training team, do a lot of outreach to job seekers and also training recruiters. Excited to be here, excited to go over these complex Boolean search strings with you. Sarah, do you want to say hello to everybody as we get started?
Sure. Sure. So I'm Sarah McMurrow. Like Bob said, I've been here for about 8 years and, spent a lot of time in this industry recruiting prior to my time here. And I'm doing the military spouse thing. I'm a veteran, have some busy kiddos. So a lot going on. But like Bob, I'm really excited to show you what we've put together here in this class.
So as we kick this off, we're going to show you what we mean by a complex Boolean search string here. This is what one looks like. Sarah, you want to just kind of give us a gist of what Boolean is and what we're going to be talking about today?
Right. So a lot of you might be looking at this search string going, oh my gosh, that thing is crazy. There's so much information there. But what's really great is we're going to kind of take you from the starting point of, just very basic, and then we're going to build to just this so that we can get to the point where we have a manageable amount of results that are relevant to what you're looking for. And that's what Boolean is all about, right? It's because you don't want to spend all day long going through resumes that have nothing to do with your search.
And we do a basic Boolean class webinar that we do every month, by the way. So we're not going to get into the basics of Boolean. If you've never even heard of Boolean and this is the first time you're here, you'll probably pick up on some stuff. But the good news is we do other stuff as far as the basic class. And if you're a ClearedJobs.Net customer, anytime you need help with a Boolean search, you can reach out to your account rep. If you can't remember your account rep, you can reach out to customer service. So we're always here to help you out. But this is the complex thing. We do have a basic class. It goes over just what quotation marks do and that kind of stuff. But we're going to be talking about some of the bigger things here. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to basically break down. We're going to start off by talking about the different parts of a complex Boolean string. We're going to be looking at the job title and just the variations thereof of a job title, because that's a big thing. Also, we're going to talk about the required skills and certs portion. Somebody's asking if they're hearing an echo, but I don't know if anybody else is or not. So
No, but oftentimes when that happens, when there's an echo, it's because someone has their sound in two places, right? It's and maybe they called in separately from their computer.
So we're going to be talking about job title, the variations of required certs and skills, and then the nice to have skills and certs. So those are the different pieces that we're going to be talking about. And got a couple goals here, Sarah. So when we're talking about putting together a complex Boolean search string, what are we really trying to do?
Well, and I kind of talked about this when we looked at that really complex Boolean string is, we're trying to, instead of using just those really common words that, software developer, for example, and just putting that in as your only search term, we're trying to use some other terms that are related, right? Other phrases that are related, because we don't want too many words in general, but we want to make sure that they're relevant. And then also things that are unique to that job because there are some phrases and some words that can apply to a lot of different things, but we want you to have really relevant results. So we want words that are unique to what you're looking for. So those, going to your hiring manager and talking, and we'll go into all of that of how we're going to make that work.
What we're doing today is we're taking I have a job description that I pulled from a company. I'm not going to tell you what the company is. We don't need that part, but it's a systems engineer job, and we're going to walk through all the different parts of this job description, and we're going to step by step put together that complex Boolean search string. And we're going to end up where you just saw that first one that we just saw, that first slide. That's where we're going to end up, but we're going to take the steps it takes to get there. So like I said, this job description starts off as a systems engineer position. And one of the things I want to point out, because we talked a little bit about how there's different ways to say some of the same job positions. I went on ClearedJobs.Net and just looked for jobs that say systems engineer in 2008. But I also looked under system engineer. If you look up here, the job, this is the singular system engineer, 363. So not nearly as many, but 363 is nothing to sneeze at. And if you look, the interesting thing of this is these are in the same company too. So the same company is calling things by different titles. And the reason we want to bring this up is because when you're thinking about what kind of words and phrases might be on a resume, And a lot of recruiters are worried about, tell me exactly, what's their current job. Well, you can be at the same company, and one person could be labeled as a systems engineer, and the other person might be labeled as a system engineer. So we're going to want to put these Boolean search strings together, and we're going to include both of those. And I want to point out here too that when we do this part of our Boolean search string, if there's no and, then or is implied. We've got those quote marks around the systems engineer as a phrase, which is important. You can put an or in between these things, but you don't need to. And when we start working these complex ones, I'm not going to put or in there. It's just and is required if you want to do an and, but as an or operator, it's just implied. So we're going to start off with systems engineer, system engineer. And what do we get, Sarah?
We get a lot of resumes. We get a lot. We have 500 just in that search, to look at. And I mean, you could look at the left-hand side and see that you can decrease it by clearance level, but there are definitely ways that we can decrease that number to give us, again, more relevant results. And, the first thing that we might want to do is we go back to that job description, right, Bob? Take the job description, and this is your basic job description. It has a lot of information too, right? So it can be a little bit overwhelming in and of itself. So we can kind of jump to the next screen and we can say, okay, what is maybe not, I don't want to say relevant, but what are some things in that description that maybe aren't searchable? Maybe they're not as tangible. Maybe they're conversation type of things, when you have that conversation in an interview or that type of thing, you're not necessarily going to search for, evolving technical landscape, for example. That's at the bottom. But and I don't know many people that would say they can't learn new tools, which is that bottom bullet as well. So kind of taking some of those things out that are not searchable, right, Bob? That aren't as going to be as helpful.
Yeah, and a lot of times people, when they look at that job description to create their Boolean search string, it looks, there's so much information there. Well, a lot of
Right.
that information is not going to be what we're working on here. So this is the same information that we just had. I just pulled that stuff that was in green out of there. So now we're working off of this part of the job description. One of the first things that I noticed, though, when I looked at this job description, and again, this was a legitimate job description from a company, was the very first bullet says they're seeking a skilled and experienced professional to join our team as a software systems engineer. So software engineer. This is another term that we can use. So when you read those job descriptions, you might find other things that are going to go in there. And so software engineer would be a good thing to put in there along with system engineer, systems engineer. Now we have software engineer. All these are or statements. And you can see when we run this search, now we've got still over 500 is the default, by the way. In ClearedJobs.net, if it's 501 or 5001. On the little left-hand side there, if you I don't know if you noticed on the faceted search before, but like there was like 364 secrets, and there was now there's 500 plus secrets. So this is a much larger number. So by adding a third piece there, we've made our total pool even larger, which that can be good, but it can also be daunting. So what are we going to do next, Sarah?
So now we'll go back to, and we're not in the job description anymore. Now we're pulling up our qualifications. So what are some other things in these qualifications that we might use that are, one, I say applicable, but again, I mean, you're not going to search for teamwork, right? It's not really something that you're going to do. So first thing we'll look at is the education. So what's really important about this education, you see that it requires a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD, really any of them. But what's most important about that is, and Bob will highlight it here, is the equivalent or the equivalent education, equivalent number of years in education. So you can do what Bob just showed, and you can say, I need a minimum of a bachelor's. And that's going to show you a bachelor's, a master's, or a PhD. Okay. But what it's not going to show you is those who have that equivalent combination of education and work experience. So, and I see that a lot, having recruited in this industry, it is not unusual to see, for example, a bachelor's degree or 5 years or 8 years of experience. So you have to be really careful putting in that education as a requirement. But in your search results, it's really easy to just kind of leave that out in your requirements and be able to look through your search results and see, what level of education someone has.
And one thing about this too, Sarah, is that because of sites like ours, you can filter. And even if you don't filter, you're going to see what their education is when you look at their profile. So you don't
Right.
want to put this kind of information in your Boolean search string. You don't want to put bachelor's degree, master's degree. You don't want to put those pieces in there because a lot of people don't list that specifically on their resume. And if they did, they might list it in different ways, BS versus bachelor's. Use the filter that's on ClearedJobs.net, or we would suggest, unless you need it, don't use it at all. Just look at the profile and see, because if you've got the equivalent work experience as one of those pieces, you can do that. So we're going to go back to the rest of our basic qualifications now. We looked at the first part. We looked a little bit about the education piece. Another thing that's listed in here is at least 5 years experience in a similar role in the tech industry. This is another question that a lot of people ask us about, and they say, hey, I'm looking for a senior person or a mid-level person. 5 years is a really interesting one too, because I don't know if, would you call that senior? Would you call that junior? That's a really tough one. But people ask us about those things. So you wouldn't want to put in your Boolean search string, you would not want to put the words senior or junior. When you do look at on ClearedJobs.net and when you run your searches, I will tell you that if you look to the right-hand side of the candidate overview box, we have a thing called key skills, and we ask the job seekers to tell us how long they've been doing, what they do, and how long they've been doing it, to give you a chance to decide if you want to talk to somebody. That person in the middle there has got a good example. They've been doing C# for 14 years. They've been doing SQL for 10, and front end, back end design for 14 years. So depending on what you're looking for, you might want to view that resume. You might not want to. But again, this is something you're not going to want to put in the Boolean search string. Use those filters or just use these candidate overview boxes to take a look at stuff. So, all right. What else are we looking
All
at on
right.
this
So we're
basic qual, Sarah?
Yep. So the next thing that we're going to look on here is the clearance. So we have this really big list of basic qualifications, and we see they need an active secret with the ability to obtain or maintain, excuse me, a TSSCI. So the first thing that you would want to do is click on your secret, click on your top secret, and click on your TSSCI, because they're all going to be qualified for your position. Because if you're saying they're able to obtain, well, someone with the TSSCI already has it. But what's really, really important about this is do not put your clearance, and we see this all the time, don't put your clearance in that Boolean string, because, we know that that's important on job boards and, different, I guess, social media outlets where they aren't focused on the cleared community. But in this case, everyone has a clearance on ClearedJobs.net. And when they require, or when they build their profile, they're required to select a clearance level. So rather than putting the things into your Boolean string, just let them click it here, because think about it. Some people put, TS/SCI. Some people might put top secret/SCI. If for the polygraph, that's a big one. I think I see that's really written a lot of different ways, for either the poly. They might write it out. They might put FSP, but if you don't put every single possible way, then they may not come up in your search results. Two, they're not required to type it into the resume because they've already selected it in building their profile.
Sarah, and these are the kind of things you and I were talking about earlier that even especially if your organization uses one of those tools where you can put in one Boolean search string to talk to multiple different job boards. And if you're talking to a job board that is not just focused on cleared folks, you might have a Boolean search string that uses the word clearance or secret. Um, if you're using some kind of a tool that's going to use that same search string on a site like ours, where they're not required to list it on their resume, you're going to miss out on some folks because ours is just set different.
Right.
We are specific to people with clearances, like she said. So you don't need to put that in there in your search string. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next part about basic qualifications here, because we're moving our way down. We're still in basic quals here. Now we're looking at a lot of pretty cool stuff here that we can use for our Boolean search string. And one of the things, technical jobs like this can be great, because we said at the beginning, you don't want to use words that are overly common. You like to use words that are pretty specific. Words like Java, Python, JUnit, Postman, these are words that are pretty specific. If it says Java and Python in a resume, it's probably likely that they're, a technical IT person and not just a coffee drinking snake handler. So we're going to take this and we're going to add this. So we have that same part, the whole systems engineer, software engineer. Now we're going to use the word and, And then we just listed all of those different things that were in there. And if you do notice, and someone had asked in a question like how to list these certs, if you notice where C sharp is, it says Java, Python, C sharp. I also have C sharp with a space in between it with quotation marks around it, because if it's got a space, it means or kind of, but you put those quote to make it one thing. And lots of people will list C sharp one way, but they might list it a different way. Same thing with other things. We have a great example how Sec Plus is listed so many ways: Sec Plus with a space, Security Plus with a space, without a space. You think about those types of things, but you want to add all that stuff into one big parenthetical. So now we have the job titles and some of these certs. And when we do this, now we've gone down from the over 500. Now we're down to 139 resumes is where we're at. But hey, we're not done here. We got more stuff to do. Sarah, what are we going to do next?
Well, next, we're going to look for a couple of different things. One, we see this highlighted phrase that Bob has, API testing tools. And me, Sarah, I'm looking at that going, gosh, I don't even know what that is. Maybe I should look that up because maybe I might want to take an acronym, right, and spell it out, or at least spell out part of it. I tend to do that a lot. One, because I want to understand a little bit better about what I'm searching for. But two, it is not unusual for job seekers to spell things out and other people to use the acronym. So it's a great idea to take both of those and put them into your search string. See, just like that. So you see in the blue where Bob added the API and then the application programming. He didn't write the whole thing out, but those two words together will be enough to, bring up that phrase if it is in fact in there. And now you'll see, the difference in your search numbers.
We've added a new thing. So we're going to get more because we've got more options that are inside there. So all of these resumes have got either one of those ways to say system engineer or software engineer, and at least one of these other things. And of course, one of the things when you look at places like ClearedJobs.Net, it'll highlight the keywords. The more of those things that it had, it would just, you see more things get highlighted. But we're bringing in a bigger thing here. Other things that we looked at in this basic qualification was, oh my goodness, just when we thought we had this job title down, it also says they want knowledge of systems architecture. All right, well, we could take the systems architecture and we can stick that up inside the first part of our system. We've been working our way down. We're adding stuff in different pieces here. So we've got both ways to say systems engineer. We got the software engineer, and similar to the way we did systems engineer and system engineer, we do the same thing with architect. So now we're going to find anybody that's got one of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ways to say a job title and at least one of these other certs. And when we do this, now we're up to 282.
Yes, those numbers, they fluctuate, right? They go up and down, but for good reasons. And there was one thing that I didn't mention that I should have, but you'll see a lot in a position description that it will say, programming languages such as, for example. Well, then in the description, it gives you a few examples, but those are really great opportunities to either Google it or talk to your hiring manager. Find out which other programming languages they might recommend that you put into your search, because it's not, your Boolean string isn't going to pull things that are similar to what you typed in. It's going to pull it whatever it is that you typed in. So if there are other possible options, having that hiring manager conversation might give you some other terms or tools that you might add to your search string.
We've made it now through the job description and the basic qualifications, but a lot of jobs will have preferred qualifications. So what are we doing with these?
So these ones, they're not required, right? They're preferred. So I would recommend putting these in their own set of parentheticals, right? Because you want to be able to save your search two different ways, and we'll talk about how you can save, but you want to run it without those preferred because you don't want to discount people who don't have the preferred, but you also want to see those who do have the preferred. So now we have our preferred qualifications, and we're going to go through that just like we did on the other ones. So here's a great example. So familiarity with or experience with containerization technologies like Docker or Kubernetes. Well, I definitely would talk to my hiring manager because I would say, I don't know what that is. And I would say, are there some other options that I might add to my search results or to my Boolean string? Same thing with, the project management tools. There are other options that you might want to add to it, but put these in a whole separate set of parentheticals is what Bob's going to show us. So there we go. So we have a brand new Boolean string, even bigger, and we have that brand new and because we want something that came from that first set, right? Those position titles we looked at. And then our second set of parentheses, those are what we need to see, some of those. And then the last set that we made are those kind of nice to have desired qualifications or preferred qualifications.
So we would have saved, like Sarah said earlier, we would have saved that first one as our basic, because that's what you need to have. Then we're going to run this other one, and we're now down to 271. So we've actually only lost like 11 by adding this preferred piece, but you still want to save them differently because, Sarah, sometimes this will make a big difference. In this case, it didn't make a huge difference, but I mean, in your experience, have you ever had where it just like the difference between basic and preferred is just off the charts?
Oh, right. I mean, you might go from 100 to 2 because there are some, technologies out there that very few people have ever touched. And the other thing is too, in your preferred, sometimes people don't put certain things in their resume. It's not because they're ignoring it, but, and with these technical backgrounds, there are so many things that these job seekers have ever touched that sometimes they don't get them in their resume. They forget. And you don't want to eliminate them either, right? From someone you'd like to talk to.
If you're using a site like ClearedJobs.Net and you're looking at older resumes, because that's a good thing to do, is to find people that have the resume that's 18 months old and they've got lots of stuff that you're looking for, but they're just missing one or two things. It can be worth reaching out and saying, hey, have you added any kind of API tools? They're like, oh yeah, I've learned how to do, Google Cloud now, but it wasn't on their resume because it was an older resume. So that's the other reason you don't, one of the things we want to focus on here is don't try to hit a home run. Don't try to say, I want
Right.
all of these things 100% of the time and look for that perfect thing. As a recruiter, we know you've got to, we're going to get you into the area, and then you've got to start doing the research and talking to people and asking the questions. But we want to bring you at least a small enough number of people that's manageable so that you can take the time. And even if you have to go through and you say, not what I'm looking for, not what I'm looking for. Oh, now there's somebody I am looking for. That's the point of having it's a manageable haul of people. So once you do all these things, we keep talking about saving searches. On the ClearedJobs.net site, right down there, there's always the thing that says save this search. So you give it a title. You can use a job number, whatever you want to call it. But by saving the search, you'll be able to run that same search. Again, I've got, if you on the left hand side is where you can see the dashboard. You go to your saved searches right there. You can either open it up and you can see you got a whole bunch that are in there. I've got a bunch saved on my site here. You can run those by hitting it. If you want to tweak it, you can hit the edit button and they'll stay there till you delete them. So again, these are just save searches, but this way you don't have to go through this whole process that we just went through of creating these Boolean search strings without every time that you're trying to do something. And the other thing you can do is we had the save search on the right hand side of that where it says save this search as a resume agent. You click that button, it opens up this little black box. Give it a name, and this resume agent will now run a search for you, the same search every 24 hours, and it'll send you an email update of anybody that's been on the site in the last 24 hours going forward. So use this first search, look at the history, look all the way back. If you get a chance to scroll through all 271, at least looking at those key skills and stuff like that. But then going forward, this resume agent, you'll get on the left-hand side there, you see what my inbox looks like. I get an email that says the following people met, and you'll see that you'll have the person's name, their clearance level, their key skills, that kind of stuff. You can also get those things off of your dashboard on the right-hand side. You see where it says resume agents, new matching resumes, stuff like that. So we've got all of those things that are there too. So Sarah, let's kind of cap this all off here. This is the same search we did. You want to talk us through how we got here?
Right. So first, right, we took our actual position title that we had. I don't even remember if it was a systems engineer or system engineer, but we took that and then we added another variation of the same position title. We looked through our position description and we said, ooh, we could add systems architect. And what about system architect? So we added some other search terms that we could put into there. And that's our first set of parentheses. And then we added a second set of parentheses. And those were our requirements, right? Those were in the job description requirements, required certs and skills. So we put No ors because they're implied, but as many of those are in the resume will come up in your resume highlighted in bright yellow that are in that set of parentheticals. And then we reviewed our nice to haves, our desired qualifications, and we put those into a whole new set of parentheses. And we said, oh, we'd sure like to see people who have those ones as well, but we don't want to eliminate those. So we saved this in two different ways, right? We saved our basic Boolean string that did not have our nice to haves in one way. And then we made a new one by adding the nice to haves, and we saved that one as a more specific Boolean string.
So going forward, when you're creating these complex Boolean strings, you can use the same concepts with any job description. Look for the different ways to say the same job title, then then group those the required certs, watching out for the words that are too common, and then you can group those together so that you can do this with an Intel job. You can do this with a finance job, a logistician job, whatever it is. You can do those types of things. And if you do have any questions about something, if you're on ClearedJobs.net, you can reach out to us. We are more than happy to help put together some Boolean search strings for you. You can reach out to specifically to your account rep. Like I said, there's Sarah, there's me on LinkedIn. If you're not connected to us, feel free to connect with us. But if you can't remember our names, or if you can't remember if your account rep is Tracy or John or Yvonne or anybody else, customer service or sales at ClearedJobs.net. We will always find out what it is. They'll get it to the right person, and we're here to help you because the Boolean search strings are probably the most important thing to getting the best results. And that's what we're here for, is to help you find the people that you're looking for. So we appreciate your time today. Sarah, you want to take us home and say goodbye?
Sure. Well, again, like Bob said, thank you so much. We truly are here to help. So just reach out to us or again, your account manager, and we can kind of work with you and we'll talk through your position description with you if you'd like, because that's a little bit more training too, right? I mean, we could do it for you, but we can also talk you through it and help you to get better at building these Boolean strings. Because we even talk to each other, right, Bob? I mean, when we get new ones, I'll call Bob and I'll say, hey, Bob, what do you think about this one? So we collaborate too.
We do. Oh, and hey, so somebody just asked a question that said, will we be sending out the recording? There's a lot of people that have registered for this. So I won't be sending out to everybody, but if you'd like a version of this, the recording, I can send you the link. It'll be a cloud hosted recording. I can send you the link. You can either respond to the same email you had when you register, because it goes back to me, bwheeler@clearedjobs.net. If you can't remember bwheeler@clearedjobs.net, you can use, like I said, customer service or sales and just say, hey, please send me the link. It takes a little bit of time for it to process, but I'll send you a link and it'll have a little security code that you have to use to like a password to view it, but you'll be able to share that as well. So if you've got other folks on your team that would like to see this, if you want to refresh yourself with it, whatever you need to do. So yeah, I will send out that link if you request it, but you'll need to request it.
Yes. Yes.
So
And you can send it your request to sales@clearedjobs.net as well, since that's right there for you.
it's
If
probably the
you
easiest.
forget
Yeah.
how to spell Bob Wheeler, B Wheeler.
All righty. Well, we're going to let everybody go. I appreciate your time. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Thursday. And we will talk to you later on.
All
Bye
right.
bye.
Thank you. Have a good day.